name is Dr. Regina McBride. I'm Dean of Library and Information Services here at Lovejoy Library. And I'm very pleased to welcome you today to our first in a series of programs on Bridging Cultures is the grant that's making this possible for us. And this is in regard to Muslim journeys, Muslim cultures around the world. And this particular program is going to deal with being Muslim in America. But before we get to our program, I do want to share a few things with you. First of all, the grant is brought to you by the American Library Association and the National Endowment for the Humanities. This is part of their important work to help us better understand each other in our very diverse culture and our many interesting traditions and faiths and so forth around the world. So we're very pleased to have been awarded this grant so that we can bring you this kind of program and to engage our fine students here who are before you in this kind of discussion and dialogue. One of the things that we have, you'll see kind of scattered around here at the tables back here and the bookshelf and on top of the books here, or a series of books that the grant very generously provided for us that deals with a number of themes involving Muslim culture. Some of them are stories of Americans' point of view of the Muslim culture, pathways of faith, for example, art, architecture, and film in the Muslim cultures, connected histories, literary reflections, all of us bringing to you information and stories that reflect Muslim traditions in the many different cultures and countries of the world. So these will be available to you should you want to learn more. These books we have on display for today for the program will be behind the circulation desk on reserve should you want to check them out. And they will be available for checkout if you ask at the desk. And I hope that you all received, we all received, Lydia, or they're on the table, the URL for Bridging Cultures bookshelf that says Muslim Journeys. That gives you the URL for the list of books so you can see the titles and the topics that are available to you in this series of materials we have here. Okay. So, I also want to call your attention to our display cases over here to your right. As we're facing the same direction I am, we have a wonderful display in our cases on Muslim culture put together by our librarian, Kathy Bowman. I think you will find it interesting and rewarding, and should you have the time to stop by and enjoy, we will have that display up for the next 30 days. And please do take the opportunity to look at that and to see more interesting information on the Muslim culture and so forth, using some of the materials we have here at Lovejoy. Okay, now I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Steve Tamari, Associate Professor in Historical Studies here at SIUE, who will share a few more remarks with you and will introduce our distinguished panel of students. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dean McBride, for making this possible. This is the beginning of a year-long series of talks and a couple of films. So I wanted just to let you know that there's more down the road. Actually, on October 23rd, we'll have some information going out shortly, but on October 23rd, we're going to have a program titled Children of Abraham, an interfaith discussion with Muslim and Christian and Jewish SIUE students. So that's coming up in a couple weeks. And then in November, we're going to be showing a film about Muslim comics called Allah Made Me Funny. And I just want to say one thing is that the programming here is really meant to be student-centered, right? So more in the way of like student panel discussions than lectures, right? You get enough of that, I imagine, during the day. So I don't want to say any more, except that I'm very happy to be here and that this is coming together finally. I'll just introduce our, really all the work for this program was done by the Muslim Students Association. And several of their members are here to give us really, I think, a sense of the variety and dynamism of Muslim communities in the United States. So we have, I'll just go from closest to me down the line. So Shamsuddin Ali, right, who's originally from Nigeria, is a senior studying biology. Nasser al-Masri is a sophomore, junior, studying political science and history, originally from Chicago, of Palestinian origin. Amina Musa is from Belleville, and originally from Palestine, a social work major, senior. And farthest away from me is Jessica Wallace, a native of Belleville as well, a convert to Islam. She converted to Islam at age 16, and she's a student at SWIC, studying English, and she wants to be a teacher. So I'll hand it over to them. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, my name is Shamsuddin, like you said, but before we start, I will recite the Holy Bible in Quran, which is the opening chapter for us before we begin. And I will recite it in Arabic and in English so that you can understand. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So the English Bible says, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the creator and the sustainer of all the worlds, most gracious and most merciful, matter of the day of judgment, and day to which we worship, and time it we seek. So, and it also says, show the straight way, and the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed the grace, those whose is not what, and who to go not astray. So basically the chapter is just trying to tell us that Allah is the most merciful and the most gracious, and we believe in Him and we praise Him for showing us His right way. So I mean the topic today is basically okay, it's basically telling you guys the circumstances and what we face in Islam in America, and challenges for being a Muslim in America and Islam. So everybody here, when we all hear about Islam, the first thing we think about is terrorism. So first of all, I will start with the basic things for all Muslims. Islam is a religion of peace, and every beautiful Islamic culture, we all have peace, and we all try to make peace with our brothers. Okay, Islam is a religion of peace, and the people that practice Islam are the Muslims. We all that we're sitting here, we are all Muslims. We have the Muslim brothers and the Muslim sisters. And in Islam, we have the 5 pillars. And the first one is Shahada, which is the believing in only one God, which is the same thing as the Lord's Prayer in Christian, which is, we all know the Lord's Prayer in Christianity, and that's for all. And the second one is Salah. Salah is practicing the 5 times daily prayer. The third one is zakah, which is giving alms to the poor, sharing what you have with other people. The next one is fasting, which is fasting in the month of Ramadan, if you are able to. And if you are not able to, you have to be able to feed people for 30 days. And the next one is Hajj, which is the holy traveling to Mecca or Medina, if you have the money. So Islam is the third most practiced country in America. The first one is Christianity, and the second one is Jewish. And Islam is the third one, and I'm proud to be a Muslim. I'm proud to be a Muslim. So challenges that we face, the fact is that, number one, as you can read, the fact is that people don't seem to understand the difference between Islam and culture. So what I'm trying to point out over there is that our Arab people is their culture, and Islam is different. We are all Muslims. I'm Muslim from Nigeria. My culture for being a Muslim in Nigeria is different from other people from the Middle East. So the mentality that everybody has is that if you're Arab, then you're Muslim. Not every Arab are Muslim. I have a lot of Arab friends that are Christianity. So the mentality that everybody has is that whenever you see a Muslim, then they're Arab, or we practice the Arab way of life, which is not true. So the second one is that the holidays, for me, as a Muslim in America, when I was back in Nigeria, everybody have their holidays. Christianity have the Christmas, I know Christianity have Christmas and some other holidays. But as a Muslim, we have Ramadan, holiday, the Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Kabir. But over here in America, only the holiday that everybody knows is Christmas and Thanksgiving and others. But yet we don't practice the one for Islam. It's like Islam is being picked up as a religion. It's like they don't really care about us. So, that's one of the things I face over here because during Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Kabir, that's the time I get to meet with my other Muslim fellows like another state and everything. We all have fun, we kill sheep and everything, and it's always fun. But over here we can't do it either in school or doing something or at work. So, which is a challenge I face over here. So the next one is after 9/11. People don't really Islam after 9/11 has changed. People are not confident in themselves to say they're Muslims. Since 9/11, it's been okay, anything that happens is anything. We are not comfortable to go to the airport, to travel around the world wearing the hijab, wearing anything. It's like when they see you in the airport, they think you're a terrorist or something. So it's like the mentality is still there that we are the people responsible for the stuff, but we are not. Islam is different and terrorism is different. Islam as a religion does not support terrorism, so it's totally different. And wearing Islamic attire, it's like everybody is not comfortable, as a Muslim, are not comfortable wearing their attire anywhere they want to, because when people see them around wearing the Islamic attire, they'll be like, oh, maybe they'll be suspicious. It's like saying, let me just give an example of saying, okay, someone has stolen before, and the next time you see the person, you'll be suspicious that, okay, this person is trying to come steal from me. So it's like that. So whenever we wear our attire or anything, the impression people have against us is that, okay, we are jihadis or something, which is not right. We are just Muslims like you, Christianity and Jewish people. So it's just we are the same people as you guys, so it's just back then. And the last one is limited availability mosques and Islamic areas. If you take a step out of this campus, at least you will see at least five churches everywhere around this school. But there's no mosque at all. So which is bad. From the country I came from in Nigeria, they're equal. It's like mosques Masjid is everywhere within the mosque, and there is a church almost everywhere. It's like a people. It's like everything is being practiced normally, and everybody's happy. But over here in America, it's like we're not really proud to say we are Muslims sometimes, and we're also proud to say we are Muslims. But I am proud to say, but some people are not proud to say because of the impression everybody has against us. Thank you very much.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Amina Musa, and as Steve introduced me, I'm a senior here at SIUE. I'm in the social work program. Yep, some of my fellow program members are here as well. So I was born, raised, and I currently still live in Belleville, Illinois, which is just about like 30 minutes south of here. And originally my family's from Palestine. So my dad immigrated to this country. He was about 20 years old, and my mom's family immigrated when she was about 2 years old. So I guess technically I'm a first-generation immigrant from both sides, and as anyone who was born to immigrant parents know, that's just an interesting experience. So for those who don't know, Palestine is a country in the Middle East, and it has quite a diverse history. So today it's mainly comprised of both Palestinians and Israelis, and they practice religions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, respectively, I guess. So in being Palestinian, I would broadly consider myself to be Arab, and then I would consider myself to be Muslim because that's my religion, which is different from my ethnicity. And I have a good friend who's here who is Palestinian, but her family is Christian, so we share similar ethnic backgrounds but different religions, which Chumps was talking about as well. But that's just one common misconception that people have, is that Islam or being Muslim is actually a race or a culture, I guess. But it's not, it's a religion, and anybody can be Muslim regardless of their background. So growing up in Belleville, I learned fairly quickly that I was a little bit different than most kids around me. And I'll never forget my first experience with diversity that occurred during my first week of kindergarten. So I attended Wolf Branch Elementary School, which is like, it's a public school in Swansea, but it's fairly smaller. It's predominantly white, upper middle class type of school, so not too much diversity there. And you know, I was a very rambunctious kid, so when kindergarten was starting, I was very eager, you know, to get out of my house and get out there. And then to my dismay, on the first day of school, I discovered that one of my mom's good friends' sons, one of my mom's good Muslim friends, her son, named Ahmed, was in my class. And so I knew him, and it's not that, you know, we disliked each other, but I guess just it was more of like a personality clash. I was very like, you know, dominant, I guess, and he was more passive, so we didn't get along very well. So, you know, here I am, I'm starting school, and I'm excited, you know, and then here's Ahmed in my class, just like, you know, obstructing my perfect vision of school because I didn't want him there. So, and that sounds terrible. So as the teacher read through like the roster on the first day of school, she gets to his name, and she stops, and you have to remember this is a very like predominantly white school, you know, not too much diversity whatsoever. So, you know, she stops and she tries, and she says like, Ahmad, and she looks at him, and he just is like, no, you know, and she's like, okay, well, how do you pronounce your name? And he said in a perfect Arabic accent, Ahmed. And here I am at my desk, like cringing internally, thinking like, what is he doing? Like, this is just, you know, from an early age I knew, you know, when you go to school, you separate that from your home life. You don't speak Arabic at school, you know, you don't talk about the mosque, you don't talk about, you know, religious holidays, you just separate that. So I'm here cringing, and and she tries again, and she pronounces it again, and she pronounces something like Ahmed. And, you know, he's still not satisfied, and, you know, I swear it was like February, and he's still trying to like get her to pronounce his name in this perfect Arabic accent, but it wasn't working out. And, you know, I remember going home and being really frustrated and thinking like, you know, why is he doing this? Like, why does he have to try to get her to pronounce it right? Like, this is embarrassing. He knows she's not going to be able to do it. You know, like, why does it even matter? Why can't he just be satisfied with the way, the way she can say his name? But what I didn't realize at that time, and what I came to realize many years later, is that Ahmed was actually doing something very powerful and very important. And even though he was 5 years old and didn't realize it, while I was there trying to cover up my background and who I was, and just trying to blend in, Ahmed was proud of his name. It's a very basic right to be able to have your name pronounced to your liking. And the name Ahmed actually comes from the name Muhammad, who was basically the greatest Muslim man to ever walk the earth. So it makes sense. But at that time, I was like, this is totally wrong. Why is he doing this? And so Ahmed, wherever you are, I apologize because I was wrong about that. So after Ahmed moved away, he moved away after kindergarten. So I went back to my normal, ignore the fact that I'm Arab Muslim life. And then when I was in 5th grade, 9/11 happened, and for the first time in my entire life, I saw people who looked like me or who represented my religion on TV, in the news, everywhere. But what I was seeing was not pretty to me. It was scary, and I wasn't only scared for the same reasons that everybody else was scared, but I was also scared thinking that those who I loved, their safety could be in danger because of the anger that people felt after this had happened, and for those who wore the hijab or who wore more traditional clothing, that they would possibly be targets, and that scared me. And for the first time, I started covering up my religion, not only to blend in with my classmates, but because I was potentially afraid of backlash or remarks or things that I would hear. And it was hard for me because to me, my religion had just always been associated with, Sunday school and pranking our teachers and waiting for snack time and, just fasting during the month of Ramadan and waiting for Eid morning, which is our religious holiday, and just waiting to open gifts. And, it was associated with every moral value and everything I held in my heart dear to me that was beautiful to me. And so to see it, this ugly side of my religion, it was disturbing. But as time passed, I came to realize, like everybody else, that of course what happened on 9/11 was a massive, massive tragedy. And but that doesn't mean that Muslims as a whole are to blame, or that this is any kind of representation of my religion, because it's not. And we as Muslims here should be just as angry at those individuals, for not only, taking so many lives and instilling senseless fear on people, but, just for the tarnishing of the reputation that occurred after that. So then when I started high school, for the first time, I kind of met people who were not only interested in learning about my religion and culture, but actually accepting of my differences. So, I found friends who respected my small differences, and then in college, I mostly became close friends with Muslims, but at the same time, I have a lot of non-Muslim friends, and I found that every time I would meet a new non-Muslim friend, one of the first things we would talk about is my culture and my religion, and how that impacts my life, even if it's in a small way. So it's I always tell people I'm Muslim, but I'm normal. I might not go to church. I might not eat ham sandwiches. But I'm a pretty normal person. And, I'm aware that, the perpetrators on 9/11, yes, they were Muslim. And I know, some of the attitudes that people have about Islam post, 9/11, but that doesn't anger me in any way. If anything, it gives me hope, and it gives me a passion and a drive to try to break down, those negative stereotypes and just, inspire an understanding. And even if that's just by being friends with somebody, or just by, speaking up in class, or just doing really simple things. And, that goes for any kind of diverse background, not just Muslims, So, yeah. So, to conclude, so today I'm participating in this speech because for Muslims like me across the country who have ever felt the need to hide their religious identity. I'm speaking for victims of the Sikh temple shooting, whose murderer mistakenly and moronically misassumed their religious affiliation, and for the hate crime that occurred on Saturday involving a Columbia University professor, for those of you who have heard about that, and for every other hate crime that's ever occurred post 9/11. I'm speaking on behalf of Muslim activists who post 9/11 saw what happened and they actually did something and stood up for something and are changing attitudes. And finally, I'm speaking for Ahmed, who refused to change his name to fit someone else's idea of what it means to be American. Thank you.
I'm not sure how to follow that. My name is Nasser. First of all, I'll say again, like a couple people before me said, Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be upon you. I'm not sure if anybody explained that. The response that a lot of people gave me back was, wa alaikum assalam, which means and peace unto you as well. So my name is Nasser. I'm from Chicago. I'm in my third year here at SIUE. I'm going to talk about two different things. First of all, just my personal life, just growing up in a Muslim household. Just what day-to-day life is like under, I guess, parents who grew up with Islam. And then I'll talk a little bit about just this, like post 9/11 stuff. I know that's a lot of people here, I'm sure, are relatively well versed, or at least just heard two people speak about it. So I'm not gonna harp on that too much, but. So I grew up in a household, both of my parents were raised Muslim, we're fairly religious, we do pray 5 times a day, and we fast in Ramadan. Obviously that's, and you guys know, I'm sure, not everybody necessarily does that, and that's between them and God, it's not for anybody to judge, but, so I grew up in a fairly religious household. I was held to those rules. I didn't, growing up I was taught not to, flirting with girls, discuss, relationships, those types of things aren't allowed until a certain age. That's the appropriate way to go about that. I was always taught that, obviously eating the swine of any sort, we don't do that. Alcohol is not consumed by Muslims. There's a lot of those little tidbits that I grew up really being held to those as a kid. So much to the point that in middle school and high school I wasn't allowed to go to dances. That's maybe stricter parents. Some parents might allow, some parents might not. I didn't go to homecoming or prom, even though I was voted on the prom court. So sad day. But just to show, some of those restrictions and guidelines might seem a little bit strict to your average American. But just to put it in perspective, I was involved in all sorts of stuff at school. I don't like to list off everything, but I played sports. I played 3 sports in high school. I was involved in NHS. All my friends, for the most part, were non-Muslim. So getting along was obviously, and you guys may know Muslims in your own personal lives. Muslims we're everywhere, just like everybody else is everywhere. They're at work, they're at school, they're at the gym. Muslims are, for some reason, it just seems like they're otherized, I guess might be the word. And it's not necessarily the case. So I think it's interesting to learn that other people are Muslim. I know I go to work sometimes and somebody will bring up something about their religion and they'll say, by the way, what are you? And I just tell them I'm Muslim. And so to them it's always interesting to learn, just to know, oh, you're Muslim. And I'll start getting questions, but I just answer them. They think for some reason my life is completely different, and that's not necessarily the case. A little bit about activism. I've worked for the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago. It's called CARE Chicago. It's a pretty big organization in Chicago. They do a lot of work with especially immigrants and anybody who's dealt with religious, I guess, prejudices are put against them. We offer lawyers to nonprofit organization. And throughout my work there, I'm starting to realize, connecting with a lot of people, that I don't think the stereotypes that maybe we just talked about, they're not prevalent. I think it's a small fringe. Those people scream the loudest, that's what you hear. And I think it took me about 3 to 4 years after 9/11. I was very much, I heard politics all day, every day at home. So it took me about 2004, 2005. I was still pretty young. I started to realize that most people don't look at me and think, oh God, he's a terrorist. And I think that's actually kind of powerful to me, just because we're in a society that talks about inclusion and that encourages inclusion. And I think that we're getting there day by day, and things like this, help like this, really pushed us in that direction. And I think we're really moving towards a more inclusive culture. There's plenty of issues. There's plenty of issues to be solved, but we're in a place that's in a good place. You know, I'm a very optimistic person, so a lot of the negatives that you're hearing, I think, are hopefully on their way out and hopefully continue to be on their way out. The last thing I wanted to talk about really was our involvement overseas and how that affects me here as an American Muslim. Obviously, we're looking at Syria right now, potentially involved there. Obviously, we have interest in the Gulf region. Obviously, we have interest in Egypt. As an Arab and as a Muslim, my concerns go beyond the fact of all these little political considerations, but again, the fact that as our government is otherizing Muslims and Arabs. I think that's one of the biggest issues, and I'm kind of optimistic about this next generation of our generation basically coming up, because a lot of these politicians are still, you know, they're hearing it, they're stuck in their old ways, and I think this next generation is a little bit more open and more inclusive to some of these other ideas from other regions, religions, cultures, whatever it might be. And so that kind of gives me hope that in the future, some of these issues that are, you know, occurring right now in Syria and Egypt and our involvement, and in Palestine, Israel, obviously, that some of that will be Iraq, Afghanistan, some of that with this future generation of a more inclusive generation will kind of help to solve those. I apologize if I went too long. I left my notes in my dorm, so I was kind of going off what I had in my mind. So, other than that, I'll pass it over to you guys.
Extremely nervous, FYI. I'll start out with Assalamu alaikum, which he said means peace be upon you. My name is Jessica. I go to SWIC in Belleville. I was born and raised in America, and actually probably, I would have to say 80% German. I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school until I was, I want to say 12 or 13 years old, until I pleaded with my parents to let me have, you know, more well-rounded experience, because in a Catholic school you don't really get any other type of experience whatsoever, except for what they want you to experience. So I started going to a public school, and that's really when my mind started, you know, going into different subjects and learning about other cultures. And that was the first time I saw a girl wearing, you know, the hijab, and I was like, wow, that's really different, you know. But, you know, I never, like, they spoke about 9/11. After 9/11 happened, like, I didn't think about Muslims in a bad way, or think, like, I didn't blame Muslims or blame a people or blame a culture. I just thought, well, bad people did it, and that's enough, you know, like, I didn't have a grudge against Muslims. So when I saw Muslims in this public school, I was just like, well, no big deal, you know, and I was friends with them, they were nice, and they gave me a good impression about Islam. So, but still I had no idea what Islam was. And one day I heard some of my friends talking about Islam, and I was just like, well, what's that? You know, I didn't even know it was a religion, really. And so I Googled it, you know, and came up with that the Muslims, they believe in the Quran, and that's their book. And so I went and I bought one, and I read it, and I was just like, wow, you know, that's it. That's like what I've been searching for in my entire life. And I became Muslim. And that was at age 16, which is, you know, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's more to the story, but I'm trying to limit myself. So, I've had a few interesting experiences as being a Muslim. Like, initially, the most difficult experience probably was starting to wear the hijab, because, you know, in American culture, not only American culture, but a lot of cultures around the world, like, you know, girls at age 16, they're really starting to experiment and, like, you know, start to dress more, you know what I mean? And so, like, it was kind of like going from, like, me thinking I'm gonna be dressing, you know, in such a way, to me, like, dressing like this. And I was like, you know, thinking, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? And so, my first, and as Muslims, I want to quote a verse from the Quran, why we're supposed to wear this traditional thing. From Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat 59, which is the chapter of the Allies, verse 59. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلبيبهن ذلك أدنى أن عليهم وكان الله غفورا رحيما. That means, O Prophet, say to your wives and your daughters and the women of the faithful to draw their outer garments, which means like something that covers their parts, close around themselves, that is better that they will be recognized and not annoyed, and God is ever forgiving, gentle. And also our Prophet, may peace be upon him, explained to us that what is apparent thereof means the face and the hands. So that's why you see now only my face and my hands, everything else is covered. So my first experience with the actual hijab was the day after that I converted to Islam. One of my friends, she was like, I'm going to take you on a mission. And I was like, okay. And so she took me to Walmart, and I was like, what are we doing at Walmart? You know? And she gave me a hijab, and she showed me how to wear it. And she was like, now you put it on and go inside. And I was like, no, please no, please no, you know. And she's like, why don't I do it? So I put it on and I went inside. And I'm thinking for sure they're going to call the police or something, you know. And I was thinking that they all are going to think I'm going to blow up the place and, you know, all these different things. So I go in and I'm just like staring at everybody. Maybe they're looking at me wrong or something. Not even anyone noticed I was there. It was if I was a ghost, you know. So I started walking around Walmart and seeing if, you know, like someone's going to maybe say racial something at me. And so I just walking. It's normal as if I'm not wearing it or wearing it. So I go down one of the aisles, and one of the women, she's stocking shoes, and she looks at me, she's like, oh, assalamu alaikum. And I was like, and at that time, I was just with them for less than 24 hours, and I was like, hello. I didn't know how to respond, you know, and so I felt, you know, kind of silly, but that was a good experience for me. That made me feel really comfortable and like, you know, this is, I can do this, you know, like just because I'm an American, there's stereotypes, I can do this, go ahead. So from that moment on, I kept wearing the hijab and I never stopped wearing it. The next thing that I kind of had to face with growing up in a Catholic family, and in a German family, they love to eat pork a lot, you know, and so that was kind of a transition for me that from not eating pork and then also only eating halal, which is like kosher for Muslims, you know, and so that was a huge thing for me, and I was, what even is halal, you know, and then I'll tell you the verse. It's from the verse called the cattle. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اسم الله عليه إن كنتم بآياته مؤمنين, which means, so eat the flesh of that animal upon which the name of Allah has been invoked when slaughtering, if you do believe in His verses. So we as Muslims, we're supposed to eat from a certain type of slaughtered meat. So me being age 16, where in the world am I going to get this type of meat? I don't even know. And so I just stuck with eating veggies for like a year until I met more Muslim people and found out where I could get this halal meat from, you know. And alhamdulillah, for praise be to God, I lost a lot of weight, so that's good. So that was, you know, one thing that I kind of struggled with, and now I'm okay. There's a lot of halal places now. So the only other thing that I initially struggled with was the 5 daily prayers that we're supposed to do as Muslims. And I'll just quote one more verse from Surah An-Nisa, the verse of the women, and the chapter of the women in the verse of 103. فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُمْ الصَّلَاةَ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِكُمْ فإذا اطمأننتم فأقيموا الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا, which means when ye pass congregational prayer, celebrate Allah's praises standing, sitting down, or laying down on your sides. So there's no excuse. We have to pray in any state, whether we're sick or we're not, or we have to pray, and God allows us to either pray sitting or standing or sitting or laying down. But when ye are free from danger, set up regular prayers, for such prayers are enjoined on believers at stated times. So there's 5 prayers a day, and they're at stated times. Those are specific times. It's not an optional, you go home and you pray all 5 at one time. No, there's a specific time. So the most difficult one for me, and probably for all Muslims, is the Fajr prayer, which is the dawn prayer. And this is, you have to wake up in the middle of the night when everyone's all cozy in their bed, you know, and so that, for probably the first couple of years of me being a Muslim, I probably prayed with my eyes closed the entire time, and I just got up, went to the bathroom, made ablution, and just prayed with my eyes closed and went back to sleep. But that was probably the most difficult thing I faced. And a funny story with that is that, you know, like I said, you have to pray on time, and no matter where you are. I mean, if you're, like, for example, the story that I have for you, if you, me and my friends, we were at Captain D's or one of those places, and it came prayer time. I knew it was in Edwardsville, okay? So we all, you know, made ablution, and we went out to the parking lot. We're all praying there in a row, you know, and all these people are driving by, and they're just like, and they're just like, just staring at us and praying, like, while we're praying. But, you know, it's just, we're used to it, you know, and I don't feel like offended by it, and I'm happy with what I've chosen, and, you know, and I honestly, I haven't, since I became Muslim, I've been Muslim almost 8 years now, and I haven't suffered any type of bad feedback from anyone. I've had plenty of questions, and plenty of people be like, why are you wearing that on your head, you know, but like, I'm happy that they're at least asking me, you know, and not accusing me or trying to batter me in any way, shape, or form, you know. I'm able to share with them my beliefs, and I'm happy when people ask questions. So that's basically me in a nutshell. There's a lot more to me, but I only have 10 minutes. That's about it. Oh, and also, we have free Qur'ans in the back. If anyone wants to take it, it's in English. So if you just want to take it just for whatever reason, you can have it. And also, we have pamphlets about Islam. So whenever we're finished, you can go back in the back and have a look and take home whatever you want to take home.
Thank you all very much.